Welcome back to Generation Influence, a podcast focusing on the movers and shakers working behind the scenes in influencer marketing and e-commerce. I'm your host, Bill Hildebolt, one of the co-founders of gen.video, a leading platform in the influencer marketing space focused on advanced analytics and e-commerce outcomes. I'm excited to introduce my guest today, Greg Jenness, campaign manager for HP's OMEN gaming brand. Greg's coming in on 5 years at HP, which qualifies as a long run in the CE hardware world, but he also has extensive experience prior to that at Warner Brothers, NBC, Pandora, and Machinima. In short, Greg's been at the epicenter of entertainment, social, and e-commerce for the last decade, and I'm really excited to get his observations on how they all interplay and where it's all headed. Greg, welcome to the show. Let's start with the present. Tell us what you're leading out on now at HP on OMEN.
I lead out on our media campaigns. So a lot of the budget that we have and leading on our demand creation, demand capture media. So really leading out on the end-to-end strategy for the brand in the US. And ensuring that we're not only driving the overarching brand, who we are, what we stand for, but also looking to hit consumers that are ready to purchase a PC, whether it's a laptop, a monitor, or desktop, and even accessories in their customer journey, their path to purchase.
Awesome. Well, obviously the gaming PC hardware space has gotten incredibly competitive over the last few years. And HP has been on the move, acquiring HyperX and making other plays to really try to take a leadership role there. So it's an exciting time for you guys at OMEN, and definitely excited to drill into that all today. I do want to start out talking about one of the tangents in this space, which is eSports. Transparently, it isn't a part of gaming, and we'll talk more about the other facets of gaming and gaming culture, but it's not one that gen.video has focused on as much as maybe other players in the influencer marketing space. We've been a little bit more focused where you are on the hardware, but you're very familiar with esports, and it's huge. Can you tell us just a bit about esports at the highest level for marketing professionals who maybe aren't as deeply embedded in that culture as others? Is it an area that more brands should be focused on, like NASCAR or something like that, or other sports, or not? And if so, how is it different than we might think about traditional sports marketing?
All right, so esports, it's competitive gaming, right? So pretty much you have two teams that are battling against each other in a certain video game title, whether that's something like Call of Duty or League of Legends or Overwatch. It's made up of a bunch of different teams. These teams, obviously go through different competitions in order to make it to the final. And obviously, their big thing that they're trying to get is this massive pool of money. At the end of the championship. So that's esports in a nutshell. I think approaching it like sports is extremely difficult. Just like video games, there's multiple genres, and the audience itself is extremely tech savvy. They know their video games. They know the technology, and so with that comes a lot of scrutiny when it comes to brands just jumping in, just to kind of align themselves. I would say that the esports side is very it's very different in the sense of, like, it's not just it's not just like everyday gaming or gaming that you would do as a pastime or gaming that you would do with your friends, whether it's multiplayer or whatnot. With brands jumping in, I think they I think a lot of the times they get a wake up call when it's like they're not able to do as entertaining or enticing things with not only the game title itself, or some of the characters in the game, or the players. A lot of times, it ends up being a bit of a logo slap when it comes to the
Mm.
sponsorship and the partnership that they have with the esports league, and whether it's the esports league, the teams themselves. And so I think it's really easy for a brand to get lost in the magnitude and how big the esports world is. In the U.S., it obviously it's a very big deal, but esports is also massively huge in other countries. China, example, especially with like League of Legends. So I think it's one of those things where brands have to be very, very careful, because again, they hear the word sports, or sports within the title, and a lot of the times they address it the same way that they would of NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and it just isn't that same type of thing. It's a beast in and of itself, and I think they have to brands need to be very careful with the way that they approach that, and making sure that it feels as natural and organic as possible, and native to the genre of esports, as much so as they would want to approach their own their own genre that they themselves fit in.
Yeah, it's really interesting and super helpful, and frankly, a little bit comforting to me, as I have felt like, the brain wants to put it in that same category with other sports and, classic pattern recognition, but it has felt different. And so you highlighted, I think, a few of those things. One, the intensity of the culture. My sense is there is a little bit more of a, these guys are separated from me by 1 or 2 degrees, which maybe there's an element of that in a lot of sports. But I think in a lot of sports, many of us realized pretty early on we weren't going to go professional in baseball. And so we became watchers, and it became a casual acquaintance and and a true fan experience, where so many gamers, they game for life, pretty seriously. And so there's the degree of separation. There's the layers of rights, which you highlighted there, which I feel like is probably a bit different than sports. And, and there is even sort of the culture of gaming, potentially, like there's like the rock and roll element, which is, it is a culture somewhat intentionally set off to itself in a bit of a way that any brand that's coming in may be a little bit more suspect to suspicion than, a sponsor of a baseball game. They're clearly just saying, yeah, we like baseball too. And that's okay, right? Nobody's going to argue with that. So that was really helpful and interesting. Be interesting to see if we end up touching on any of those same elements as we go through further. And I think this does feel like a little bit of a segue, which is, one of the tricky things for me with a brand like Omen is that so many serious, even if still amateur gamers, like to build their own machines
Mm-hmm.
versus buying a pre-built like an Omen or any of the many competitors who are focused specifically on building gaming-oriented PCs. And so to say, though, that a hardware brand should ignore the builders is very simplistic, overly simplistic, because there are so many tech channels on YouTube and elsewhere where building or modifying systems is core to the content. And actually, that's one of the great things, particularly with the HP brand. The units are incredibly easy to service and expand and modify. And so, and these people have massive followings. And my sense is there's a lot of people there who maybe don't want to build their own machine, but they are doing research on what to look for in a machine, how to think about a machine, how these things are put together for their own purposes, which again, they may lead them down the path of buying a pre-built, but they still want to be highly educated. And so to not be there is to ignore this huge segment of where people are getting their info. And so without necessarily speaking about Omen's strategy, particularly if there's anything sensitive, but what do you think is the right approach in walking these lines in the relationship with the builders themselves?
Yeah, there's a lot of niches when it comes to the audience within gaming, right? So I think, like any sort of genre or any sort of personality, right? You're gonna have your gaming enthusiasts who might be a little bit more hardcore. You're going to have your everyday gamer, somebody that, utilizes the video game titles to escape their day to day or to connect. And sometimes people just don't have the ability to spend the time to build out. And I think, one of the great things is like you can have the knowledge on how to build, but not the time. So getting it pre-built makes total sense. Or maybe you just don't have the knowledge set and you're still intimidated and you're looking to get the best piece of hardware that you can that'll allow you to play these PC game titles. So you buy a pre-built, or you take a look at it and you're like, you know what, I can do this. And yeah, you end up buying your own case, you start buying all these components and everything. I think one of the things that Omen has done right is the fact that a lot of our desktops have easy access to the inside, meaning that you could basically strip everything out of it. You could have your case, you can put things into it, you can update it and upgrade it as you go. You can update the GPU, the CPU, the different fans, your storage, your RAM, all of that. So a lot of the higher end PCs that we have do give you a bit of an upgradable component to it. And I think one of the great things about the gaming industry is just how different people are that are within it. Just as different as a lot of game titles, there are a lot of different genres of video game. That's pretty much the exact same thing when it comes to the people that are playing. I mean, you have several different waves and complexities of the people that are playing video games. And I think that's one of the great things that kind of transcends time, from the early days of consoles all the way to how it is now with Xbox, PC, and PlayStation, right? I mean, you have the ability to build your own, to upgrade, to buy something that's already pre-built, to buy a console. And I mean, you can pretty much create and adapt your gaming experience as much as you want.
I love that. There's so many things I want to touch on in that. That was really, really interesting. First of all, the idea that there's so many genres and niches and different kinds of players. We got to come back to that because that felt like a comment that was directed at me personally. So we'll get back to that. You also made me think of. I think some of the funnest moments. I'm not claiming necessarily success around this, but some of the funnest moments we've had on campaigns is where we've had Omen product managers literally on the phone with builders and talking about the engineering. Conversation went completely over my head, of course, but you could feel the energy in the room between these amateur builders but very successful YouTube influencers geeking out with deep engineers, on the Omen side, talking about why this design choice versus that design choice or engineering choice, whatever the right phrasing is. And there's real magic there. So made me think of that. And I think that's a harbinger of one of the real reasons it is critical to continue to, to engage with that audience. By the way, I've got another hard question coming for you. And some of these like challenging topics around the evolution of gaming and things like the builders versus the players.
Yeah.
But let's pause for a second and do hopefully an easy one and a fun one.
Okay.
What's something you guys have done on Omen in the marketing side that where you're super proud and like can give us just a quick case example of something that really worked from a marketing perspective? You mentioned something you were proud of. What's another thing, maybe even more focused on the marketing side, that you feel great about?
Yeah, I mean, just recently in July, Omen had the opportunity to go to Anime Expo, which is one of the biggest anime conventions in the world, and it takes place at the LA Convention Center. This was our first step into the convention and also into anime, and really doing something at the event and in the space. And I think one of the great things about it is when when we were thinking about the overarching approach and the strategy, we wanted to really look at it from a perspective of, let's not just show up and have, our products there, but let's show up and let's provide an experience that pretty much helps to capture what makes video games and what makes anime so amazing. And I think a lot of that is really about the worlds, the vast worlds that anime has, that video games have, the storytelling, the insane narratives that these games and these animes have, and not only that, but like the characters themselves, whether it's a villain, protagonist, a hero, even side characters, right? There's so many similarities between video games and anime, and I think both cultures just they meld so well together. And so when we were looking at this, we not only wanted to do it from a in-person perspective at the event, but also, if you can't make it to the event and you can't make it all the way to LA, what can we do so that you still have that same experience digitally, online, social. So in addition to the event space that we did, the experience that we did there, we also did a Choose Your Quest anime series on YouTube, to where you could, this kind of goes back to, when we were younger, but the choose your own adventure type of execution. And so we custom made and produced an anime, really short form anime series where you got to pick and choose the direction that the story took you in.
That's awesome. What a great sort of example of the breadth, right, of the genres that gaming touches and how woven it's become into all of entertainment. So that was perfect as a offset to kind of some of the gaming conversation earlier. Also feels like a pretty good segue to the next hard question, which I know you didn't know was coming. So thank you for the setup. I'd be remiss in the end of 2023 if I didn't ask you about AI. Of course, all of us have been thinking about AI from as many angles as we can. But the one of the angles I haven't thought about it from is gaming. And everyone's talking about what it's going to do to influencers and creators of all types, but I actually haven't heard a lot of conversation about specifically what it might mean for gaming. But clearly, it would seem like this is a very logical place for generative AI to have a lot of potential disruption quickly. Have you seen that yet? Do you feel like it's still coming? When it comes, do you feel, and again, I know these are just personal opinions of one guy working in one part and not necessarily the game development side, but clearly with a lot of expertise and understanding the industry, do you think it'll be democratizing? Do you think that professionals don't have to do half the things that they've been doing in the past, or do you think it just ups the ante for what gaming publishers and others are going to look for from their creatives on the programming and development side?
I think AI is going to help to up the ante when it comes to the personalization, the customization of the gaming experience, from the story and having that be personalized to your characters and having that be personalized. You think about games like Grand Theft Auto, things like Red Dead Redemption, where there are non-playable characters that your main character interacts with, right? So I think in a situation of AI, and in that example, you're going to start seeing a lot more rich interactions with those NPCs. I think, sound engineering, music, environments, background environments, that sort of thing. I think AI is going to help a ton in that situation. But I think, one of the big things that I think AI is going to really help is to allow the producers and the developers of the games to be able to focus in on building the games themselves, to really utilizing their expertise and not being stretched so thin when they're making these different titles. You hear a lot about the gaming industry where they certain titles have had to be pushed back or delayed, and a lot of it, making sure that the title that they put forth and release is going to be the best thing for the players, for the industry. So hopefully, I think AI will help to alleviate some of that, and really allow the talented developers and producers to really let their skills and their talent and their game to really shine forth. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where it replaces. I think it's more so going to be the enhancement of the overarching experience that gamers have playing these different titles. I really, really hope that it'll, kind of crank up the level of video games up to an 11, and allow, the creatives to really spend time on things.
What a great optimistic answer. And even more exciting is that from the Spinal Tap reference there at the end through two video games that I've actually played, Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, where you're absolutely right. These cinematic experiences where, to me, that interaction with the other characters and like truly falling into and inhabiting that world is 90% of the fun. And so the idea of that getting amped up even further is really, really exciting. So let's just hope you are right in your prognostication on AI impacting that. And that makes all the logical sense in the world. All right. Well, it wouldn't be Generation Influence if we didn't talk about influencers, at least for a minute. So let's do that. It's almost now a time for a message from our sponsor, gen.video. So let's talk about influencers, where you and I have done a lot of collaborations. We've done lots of different kinds of programs together. We've tapped classic tech reviewers on YouTube to do very practical product overviews. As we talked about, we've engaged with some of those builders. I certainly had fun doing that. We'll let you talk about whether or not you think that was successful. We've done partnerships with celebrity gamers to tap into that cool factor, or at least try to. And we've even tapped creators in other verticals to try to reach new audiences and redefine the brand. And I think one of the things that's been so interesting in gaming hardware over the last few years is the machines have become lighter, faster, more broadly capable, and so they can now serve as lifestyle or even business devices in the right kind of context. They're not necessarily just for gamers, crossover to students. So it's just been a dynamic, fun, yet highly competitive space. And so I'm sort of curious if you've reached any personal conclusions about, are any of those tactics vastly superior, or are there things that you have felt like in the influencer world worked really well where others felt more challenged? Again, I'm sure it's all somewhat context specific, but I'm wondering if you've walked away with any big lessons as you've thought about influencer specifically related to gaming.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely think that working with content creators and influencers really, really helps in terms of being able to attach to the creator or influencer's built-in audience. They have clout that they've built up on not only on like YouTube or Twitch, but also on their social platforms as well. I think one of the things that's really, really tough when it comes to working with an influencer or creator is to not be overshadowed by their star power, and ensuring that not only are you doing something that is unique, but still feels organic and authentic to the creator themselves, but also to the brand, to where they both are able to shine, and that you're doing something that the creator's audience actually is used to from them. The last thing you want to do is just have something that comes out that is you know completely off the wall, isn't the usual content that they would do on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. There's a reason why they have an audience. There's for the most part, there's a schedule. There's a type of content that they're known for, and so you want to make sure that you're working within that. And I think we've seen From the Omen side, we've seen that not only working with influencers and content creators helps you to build the awareness around your brand, and obviously build interest there as well, but also to help you in the consideration and evaluation side of things when it comes to the products that you have in the market, and helping them to make the best decision possible when they're looking to actually purchase something along those lines, whether it's during back to school period, or whether it's during the holidays, which are two very, very big seasons for purchasing video game products in the industry. And so, I think one of the fun things about that is being able to walk that line between, one, making sure that you as a brand, you're not just doing a logo slap. Obviously not the best way of doing marketing and advertising, but really, speaking with that creator and influencer and trying to come up with a way that you can organically place and build your brand or products into a creative, into a narrative, into a piece of content versus a commercial, so that you both really shine through. And I think the other thing is, not every single way that you're going to be working with a creator or influencer is exactly the same. I mean, like you touched on it, you can have product spotlights, you can have unboxings, you can have branded content, you can have product placement within a series that is scripted, unscripted. So I really think it depends on the brand. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. I think it depends on the type of audience that you're trying to hit with working with creators and influencers, whether it's, again, entertainment based or video game based or product based. I think every single thing that you do is going to have context. It's going to have a strategy against it, and there's going to be a level of consideration that you really have to take into mind when you're thinking all this through and collaborating with the influencer content creator to kind of bring the creative forward. The other thing, just calling it out, is whether what you create is going to be put on your channel or on their channel, or if it's going to go straight into media. Um, I think, again, there's a lot of different choices that you can make there. And you just have to be really smart about the way that you go about it. But ultimately, the main thing with working with creators and influencers, I think, is there's a reason why you as a brand, or you know, personally love that creator. Like, there's a reason why you went to them. It's because of the personality, the visibility, the following, the engagement that they have. And the last thing you want to do as a brand is to negate that by throwing in a bunch of over the top advertising. So again, I think there's a fine line that you have to play in order to ensure that you meet your goals, and also make sure that you're not killing the main reason why you went to them.
Yeah, I think it's that was a great summary of the fact that while it may look like a lot of fun, and in a lot of ways it is a lot of fun, it's a space where screwing up feels particularly bad. It
Yeah.
feels a little bit different, when you kind of get a shampoo commercial slightly wrong, or
Yeah.
a shampoo sponsorship slightly wrong. You can really F up here.
Yeah, the other thing is ensuring that your whatever you're producing is actually made for the space that you're going to be within, and not doing a cookie cutter model. The last thing you want to do is basically take something, cut it up, and make it into different formats and just rinse and repeat, put it on 5 different platforms. it should feel native to the platform that it is that you're programming to. So example, you know, producing something for YouTube, producing something for TikTok, for Instagram, for Twitch, uh, even well now it's called X, but even X, and just making sure that the creative, the content, the execution feels native to the space.
Fabulous. All right. Well, we didn't do much on your background, history, resume, and the reason I think is because it kind of spoke for itself with a lot of the places where you've been. So I do want to take a quick trip down memory lane, and touch on one of those places, which is kind of the beginning for me, for you in gaming. You spent 4 years at Machinima, which was one of the iconic multi-channel networks that dominated YouTube's early years.
Yeah.
And I just want to touch on, so MCNs, for people who don't know, was kind of some challenges with business model fundamental, had nothing to do specifically with Machinima, but they all sort of wound down over time. But my goodness, what a ride, and what a cultural force Machinima was. And I would say beyond gaming, it just was a huge event. And I'm just sort of curious, what like lessons, learnings about the power of gaming did you carry forward from that time? I mean, you have not left the space, and
Right.
so clearly there was something inspirational there that you continued to want to be part of. Let's tell us one or two of those things. If I'm a young person trying to into gaming marketing, like what are the one or two things that you'd say, like, look, this is it, time immemorial, you need to understand as you're coming into this incredibly dynamic space?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I learned, or further realized, is the fact that gaming isn't one size fits all. Gaming, much like people, there are a lot of things that um, make up make up the gaming world. Whether it's let's play videos, whether it's vlogs, whether it's custom content where they're utilizing a video game title to create entertainment. There's obviously scripted and unscripted series where you're recreating the world of the video game that you love. One of the other things is just how big and how influential content creators and influencers can be. And I think one of the things is just realizing also is like it's it's for the most part, it's normal people that have a love of gaming, of a love of entertainment, and they got the secret sauce right in the sense of they've been able to build up a following. They've built up their subscribership. They've gotten a average view per video that is on the extremely high side, and they've been able to monetize their content to where it can be an everyday job for them. And I think one of the things that I think that really stood out is the fact that the entertainment space is obviously changing, much like what we've seen with like streaming video, with connected TV and all of that. I think as you see younger audiences and younger people, the more you realize that they're not really watching traditional television anymore, even if it's streaming television. A lot of them are more so watching YouTube content. They're watching TikToks. The fact that they actually have the ability to potentially speak with these creators, the people that they watch on a daily basis, the people that they have this admiration for, I think really makes it, one, inspirational, but two, aspirational, of people wanting to become content creators and influencers in the future, and learning all about production and development, and whether that takes you into the entertainment world or gaming, or even graphic designing, technology. I think being at Machinima and being in that space, I think really opened up my eyes to the level of um, entertainment capabilities and opportunities there are in the space.
I want to double click into that. It is really interesting and fascinating. And actually, you made me think. I was thinking about myself, as I always am. But then you even made me think about my daughter. So, my daughter, to further age myself, is mid 20s.
Okay.
She thinks absolutely nothing of DMing her favorite musicians. And, she will buy the backstage pass package because she's actually already met these people before. So going and getting another selfie with her favorite artist, who, global phenomenon. These are people, these are not like local musicians. This is completely natural to her. Whereas, the idea I was going to like text Ozzy Osbourne, not only did the technology not exist, but he was so distant in my mind. He wasn't even part of the same species I was, and debatably he's still not. But the idea that these are humans and you can interact with them, I think is fascinating. But where I really want to go with this is again my own personal experience with gaming, right? So again, to age myself, greatest Christmas gift ever got was an Atari 2600, which I played till it wore out. And then I graduated and, still play Xbox and some on PC, but mostly like never left the console world. But where I really felt like I got pushed out was I did not want to transition to online gaming. I didn't want to play against other people. I know you do from, knowing you and knowing how immersed you are in the culture. Help me as an old marketer, and maybe for other marketers who aren't, as immersed in the space as you are, help us understand this culture of immersion. Like, how do you, as a guy that I know has family, has kids, has a day job, has a really big day job, how do you feel comfortable going on? Which I feel like the whole culture has moved online now. It's all about gaming online. How do you feel comfortable competing against dudes who are 25 years old, single, and like this is their main avocation? Like, I don't get that. Help me understand, what does that culture of immersion look like, and especially like any parts of it obviously that are relevant for marketing professionals, because that's where I lost the script and that's what I'm trying to understand.
Man, I, it's tough because every gaming experience is different. Again, there's so many different genres. There's sports, there's racing, there's fighting games, there's open world, there's MMORPGs. I think it really depends on the person. It depends on the level of interaction that they want to have with the outside world as they're playing these games. Um, you know, there are certain genres like first person shooters. One of the main things when it comes to first person shooters is that it has a stigma around um, obviously multiplayer games, kind of shit talking, and really just kind of getting aggressive with people in the lobby and the games. And I think it really depends on. I mean, if you want to do that, fantastic. If you don't want to do that, I think the route that I typically go is I personally will mute other players. You have the ability to do that to where you can just focus in on your gameplay. You can focus in on the experience. Um, and the other thing, is you can basically create a group in Discord, and kind of cater your group to friends, to colleagues, to people that and that way, as you're playing, the only people that you're speaking to are your friends, people that you actually want to be talking to. That way, you have you can control and have a positive experience. Um, and I think for me personally, and again, this is just me personally, being able to unwind from the day, from being a parent, from work, and even just like having an hour or two to kill, whether it's during the day, on the weekend, or like super duper late at night before going to bed. And being able to hit up a friend or being able to hit up people that I know and just get on Discord, talk to them, and then just play, whether I'm just talking to them on the side or I'm actually playing with them in on the same team. Again, example, Call of Duty, you're able to have connections, you're able to have people that you play with, and you can basically collaborate in that way. And again, you can do this on Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, and it's just a way to ensure that you have the experience that you want to have, and that you're able to connect with the people that maybe you're in a different town, a different state, and you haven't been able to, you haven't had a chance to see them or talk to them, and this is a great way for you to connect together. Or again, could be one of those things where you're just utilizing the opportunity to kind of get your mind right, or to forget about what's going on. I think one of the great things about gaming is you don't just shut off your mind, you don't just shut off your brain. It's not like a mindless thing. You're leaned in, you're thinking, you're trying to strategize about what it is that you're doing. And again, it can be any type of genre of game, but you're still leaned in, and focusing in on potentially solving a puzzle, or figuring out how to beat a boss, or how are you going to go about getting to a spot to attack your opponent. Yes, you're forgetting about your daily woes, and you're forgetting about what's going on in your actual life, but you're not shut off. You're still thinking, you're still strategizing, you're still really leaned into what's going on, and also like digesting the story. And I think that's one of the great things about gaming, is you can control the experience that you want to have.
That was great. It was interesting. I was not expecting an overlap with another one of my sort of favorite verticals, if we can call it that, right now, which is sort of the whole wellness space. Has been kind of the rabbit hole I've been down personally in 2023. But you just kind of hit me head on with two of the main things you can do for wellness, and actually two of the things that are considered most underappreciated, right? We all know to exercise, we all know to eat well,
Mm-hmm.
but two of the most important turn out to be community and actually being mentally challenged, but in a way that is not sort of additive to your day-to-day stress. You just hit two of them right on the head. And you also actually reminded me of my favorite game of all time, which is Halo. And the reason I loved Halo was specifically that the early versions of the game, or editions of the game, were completely collab oriented, locally collab, and then it moved online collab. And again, that's where I sort of lost the script. But I never had more fun in my life than when I was playing with somebody on my local machine, spouse, son, like whoever, killing aliens together. So really great. The other bigger object lesson, the one I think maybe most applies to the marketers on the phone, or on the listening in on the call, is this idea of just the breadth and the diversity. That is like the overarching message of, I feel like the whole podcast is, you may think you know gaming, but you don't maybe know all of the different aspects of entertainment that it's touching, and the sort of underground movement that has become gaming and is just changing the face of everything. Again, that was awesome. Given the strength of some of your insights there from your time in Machinima, is there any other point in your career you'd like to highlight and talk about where you felt like it was formational around the foundation of gaming and gaming culture?
My time at NBC was spent at G4, which was the video game TV network. And this was 2007 to 2010, 2011, I believe. This was back during the days of Olivia Munn, Kevin Pereira, Attack of the Show, Ninja Warrior, that sort of time period. And that's where, like, for the most part, like, G4 was what YouTube is today. That's kind of what people, what gamers, what young audiences kind of went to for the same sort of content consumption that you would see on YouTube. There was, things like Around the Net, viral videos, that sort of thing. And G4 was vastly ahead of its time. And a lot of the reason why it didn't continue going, I think, was because it was going after um, uh, a mindset that a lot of people didn't understand. And that mindset is gamers are not just defined by gaming and gaming alone. They're defined by several facets and several genres. The content affinities that a gamer has are vast. I mean, they love sports, they love entertainment, they love comic books, they love TV, they love music, they love sneakers, they love fashion. And so a lot of times, the programming on that TV network didn't always match up to like hardcore gaming, um, uh, kind of the what people knew as gaming. And it was definitely ahead of its time in the sense that like it was on the cutting edge of being at big name events like CES and E3 and Comic Con, WonderCon, and being like the exclusive broadcaster for these events. And I think if G4 back then, obviously not the G4 that just happened and was killed within less than a year, like in 2021 and 2022, but back then, if that would have been online or if that would have been on YouTube versus it being on cable television, I think it would have been way, way, way more successful. I think one of the crazy things is that you have people that worked at G4 that have basically, when they left, they went on to um, pretty much like mold the the ways of entertainment. I mean, look at Chris Hardwick. He was on Attack of the Show. He was on Web Soup, and then he went on to really do well with his comedy to be the host of Talking Dead. Olivia Munn, right? She went from Attack of the Show, became an actress, was an X-Men, and even people behind the scenes. The writer of Attack of the Show went on to write Deadpool the comic book, went on to write X-Men, um, Guardians of the Galaxy. His name is Jerry Duggan. Phenomenal dude, extremely smart, extremely creative. And so I think that was one of the ways in which in my career my love of gaming and entertainment really blended together. And it's again where I kind of saw the breakdown of like, if you're going to go after the gaming audience, you don't just hit them over the head over and over again about gaming, right? Like, your ability to hit a gamer is going to be a lot easier if you're tackling the different loves and different content affinities that they have in their day-to-day world. And it's going to be easier because you're not having to break down what they already know about gaming. Um, gaming, the gaming audience, like I said, is extremely tech savvy. They, can smell bullshit from a mile away. They know when they're being advertised to. And so it's really hard to stand out in the gaming space when you have, 10 to 15 other gaming brands that are doing the exact same thing. What's the easier way to do that? Go after people that are consuming entertainment and comics and music and all these other things that, yeah, you know what, they also play video games. And oh, hey, by the way, like your gaming PC, your gaming desktop, it can do every single thing that you do on a daily basis faster than your normal computer. And oh, hey, by the way, you can also game. And it basically can do all these different things that you want. You can produce, you can edit, you can graphic design, you can do your work, you can do your school stuff, you can play video games, you can watch TV, you can connect. And again, you're doing it faster, you're doing it better. The screen is way better than a normal computer. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, I tip my hat to my time at G4 because what I learned there, starting out my career, has basically transcended from then all the way to now.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Loved learning about G4. I totally geek out on these like history, where we come from type questions, and so thank you for that. That was amazing gold. All right, we're coming in toward the end. We've got two ones for fun today. Two for fun doesn't sound as good as one for fun. So anyway, we're going to call it two one for funs. First, tell us your favorite game to play on an Omen and why.
Oh God. Uh, can I say multiple?
You can, sure. I mean, half of this is like help me like shop for people on my Christmas list. So, more ideas I get, the better.
Yeah, horror games and first-person shooter. First-person shooters, I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty, and again, it's a way for me to connect with friends and stay connected with them. We touched on it earlier, but being able to hit them up on Discord and just, you know, jump into a multiplayer together, talk through things, talk about, what's going on. Really great, being able to play on an Omen. It from not only the PC perspective, but also from the monitors. The monitors are fantastic. And then horror games. Resident Evil. I'm currently playing Dead Space, the remastered version, and just the immersive qualities of our screens of the Omen monitors, the display. It just, it makes your heart pound. The stress, the anxiety that it gives you, the jump scares, the different monsters and zombies and stuff like that coming at you, obviously depending on the game that you're playing, but like horror and first person shooter games are my my favorite on a PC.
Man, you are a better man than I am. I got so wigged out playing like BioShock and Fallout, which probably aren't even
Oh,
close to the
dude.
scariest games out there. I eventually had to walk away. Um,
It's it's crazy. Like a lot of those games, sci-fi based or even horror based. I mean, you're starting to see them come out as movie or TV titles. Like, look at The Last of Us and just how compelling a story and how amazing the adaptation has been. I have been waiting for BioShock and Dead Space to be titles that come out. I've always said like Dead Space just feels like The Exorcist mixed in with Event Horizon, which two uh, you know crazy horror movies from back in the day. But those storylines, those just the characters, they're so amazing. And if if they do end up doing those, I'll probably be one of the first ones to binge watch it or line up to see it at the theater. Um, just really rich storytelling.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are amazing in their ability to transport you to a different place. All right, last one, the second one for fun. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people. It'll be no surprise to regular watchers of the podcast. It's a chance to pay it forward. Someone who's inspired you in your career, helped you to get to where you are today. We will call them out in the marketing for the podcast, let them know how impactful they were to you. Anybody come to mind in that regard?
Yeah, one of my mentors, her name's Deborah Beckman. She's one of the executives over at 2K in the marketing department. I think at the global marketing for their game titles. She and I met back in my G4 days. She taught me everything I knew, really, kind of nurtured me and taught me the ropes of marketing and how to be an efficient and effective project manager, and has really had my back and has pushed me along in my career. So she's definitely somebody that I would say is extremely influential to me, and also within the entertainment and gaming space. Um, she has had quite a bit of experience in gaming and entertainment as well.
I love that. That was awesome. I noticed you said touch everything you knew. I think it might be fair to say you've taught me everything I know about gaming and gaming culture. And so I appreciate that as well. And I know the audience is going to feel the same way. And I'm sure Deborah will be thrilled to be called out by you, given the incredible things you've accomplished in your career. So, Greg, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. We really covered a ton of ground today, and I appreciate it. I feel smarter, which is always a good thing to feel like after one of these. And so thank you again. And to the
Thank you.
audience, thank you for listening. We will see you next time on Generation Influence. Thanks.